Herndon Town Council Public Session, March 13th, 2018.
Good evening, everyone. We'll call the meeting to order, and I would like to warmly welcome Scout Troop 1570, who's here this evening, to lead us with the Pledge of Allegiance. So I'd invite you forward to do that. Please join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Councilmember Cunningham is out of town and will be absent from tonight's public hearing, and we have no presentations this evening, so that brings us straight to a couple of sets of minutes up for approval. We have one set of minutes, I guess it's just one set of minutes. Is there a motion to approve the February 27th public hearing minutes?
So moved.
Second. Discussion on the motion. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? That motion carries. That brings us right into comments. Mr. Town Manager, do you have any comments for us?
Nothing this evening, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Friedrichs.
I do. Today is the day that, today is Arts Advocacy Day, and today's the day that all nonprofit arts organizations in the U.S. are encouraged to speak to their local and national officials about the value of arts in the local community and the world. The town of Herndon has placed the arts at the center of our new downtown development for a reason, and we expect the return on our investment to be a stronger community, a stronger economy, and a better, more vibrant place to live. We are so proud of our arts community, especially the two most prominent of them, Arts Herndon and Next Stop Theater. And I know a lot of you are represented here tonight. The reputation of these two organizations has only increased. I am amazed to see the growth that is happening every day. The arts build communities in many ways. They strengthen our town's economy. When we talk about the monetary value of arts to a community, we're expressing an important financial concern. The arts add over $790 billion nationwide to the gross domestic product and provide jobs to 4.8 million Americans. Arts venues bring much needed dollars to auxiliary businesses such as restaurants, hotels, and retail. The arts help strengthen our business community. Access to the arts is something large employers look for in a new community, as well as the ball fields, homecoming parades, and golf courses that are also so dear to our hearts. The economic value of the economic benefit of the arts to our community is extremely important to those of us sitting on the dais because it allows us to budget and plan. Arts Herndon and Next Stop Theater bring valuable dollars into the community. For every dollar the town puts into these organizations, many more dollars are returned to the community in the form of entertainment, education, scholarships, jobs, and volunteer hours. It is virtually impossible to quantify this, although I used to do so every year, to the tune of about $8 generated for every dollar spent by the town. And that isn't taken into account the business, restaurants, hotels, and retail establishments receive from these performances and exhibits. I was recently in an exhibit at Art Space. It was the photography competition, and 8 people from that competition came and sat in next to me at the Ice House Cafe. So I'm aware that there's a really valid argument to be made for our restaurants benefit a great deal from our events, our education, our performances. But the most important thing I think that the arts do is build our character, our empathy, and our community. The arts are valuable in themselves, not just for the economic value they bring to us. When we listen to music, quilt, draw, sing, sculpt, perform, read, tell stories, write poetry, dance, and teach the arts, we give ourselves to our community, and we give ourselves to ourselves. We are expressing in the most deep, emotional way what is important to us, and we are expressing empathy for other people. Some people attain this feeling through other venues. I know athletic experiences can also bring this feeling of high and love and empathy and understanding and good sportsmanship, but the arts do this as well, and it's for a different community. Sometimes there's a lot of overlap, sometimes there's none. So on this Arts Advocacy Day, I know you've come to advocate to us, but I also want to advocate to you. What you bring to us is magnificent and important, and thank you.
I couldn't agree more. Ms. Olam.
Thank you. Just wanted to brief you. Last Sunday night, 2 days ago, was Friends of Runnymede annual meeting, and I attended the event over at Art Space. Another chance to go look at the photography that's up that I saw when Ms. Fredericks and I were at the event. They had a great speaker, Dr. Gerald Stinger Jula, and he's with the U.S. Geological Survey, and they're working on this awesome program, and the Friends of Runnymede want our help because there's this awesome app. So if you have a smartphone, iPhone, or an Android, you can download iNaturalist and help identify the species of plants and wildlife, animals, bugs, and so forth. And you can take pictures, and then it goes into this big database, and you get people to confirm what you've seen and what you're identifying it as. So it's really cool so that we can keep up with what is at our own Runnymede Park. And this is a good time of year to go when things are just coming up out of the ground, like maybe in another 2 weeks. But also, I would like to acknowledge everyone being here for Arts Advocacy Day. I, too, am very supportive of the arts and concur with everything my colleague just said. And I was with her at the Ice House after the event and saw those people as well. And I know every time I go see a theater production at Next Stop, I just cringe when I see all those people driving to Reston after the plays to spend their money in their restaurants when they could be in Herndon. So I am a big supporter and want to see our arts in the downtown. I think most of you know how I feel because I just think it is an amenity. My boys were into sports. I minored in drama and art, and so I had to just go do things on my own. And very soon after I moved to Herndon in the early 90s, I discovered the Industrial Strength Theater, which is now Next Stop, and they're getting ready to celebrate their 30th year, and it is also, it's just always a great time to go to Next Stop. And the people that are there, you probably got 70-80% of the people showing up there or at the art gallery openings at Art Space are coming in from outside of town for those big events. So it really does generate traffic into the town, and then they see our awesome restaurants. Once they've been there, then they come back, just like Friday Night Live does as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Davidson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll make my comments brief, but I just want to say, especially with the cold weather outside right now, I'm really looking forward to the beginning of Friday Night Live, which will be May 4th this year, and hopefully it'll be a warm evening.
And no rain. Thank you. Mr. McKenna.
Yeah, just a couple things. First, I see we have some Boy Scouts here. I actually was at the Eagle Scout Court of Honor ceremony for Troop 1018. 3 of their members became Eagle Scouts, Anthony Cinque, Cameron Dresner, and Jack Edgman. Just to put it in perspective, people who become from Cub Scouts to Eagle Scout, it's about 2.1% that become Eagle Scouts. And to put that in perspective, you have a 2.9% chance of becoming an NFL player from college. So you have a better chance of being drafted by the Washington Redskins than you do becoming an Eagle Scout. So I want to thank those guys for doing what they did and commitment to country and community over themselves. Also, too, I want to let you know that the Herndon Youth Advisory Council is something that started in December. We'll be meeting tomorrow night over in the Herndon Municipal Center. Mr. Ashton, our town manager, has been kind enough to speak to these fine students. So it's an open meeting. You're more than welcome to stop by. The Herndon Police Awards were on Saturday, but I will not take any thunder away. Just want to let you know that was a wonderful event. That was
whatever
great.
You want, Mr. McKenna.
And then last but not least, in regards to the arts, I did want to say I back it too as well. I actually was in the high school choir, madrigals, and in college. And my first year in high school, my senior year, I went out for Damn Yankees and got the lead as Joe Hardy. So just to let you know, I can sing and dance back in the day. I was a bass, and I could carry a tune, but unfortunately not as a baritone. I was a bass, so I had to keep the melody. Anyway, that's what I want to say.
You are full of surprises, Mr. McKenna. Vice Mayor Baker.
Thank you. I'll continue that theme. I couldn't sing, but I did play the saxophone in marching band. No. So I did want to say
I went to Next Stop Theater last weekend. I know several other council members went as well to see Godspell, the musical. Highly recommend it. So it's on through April 1st, I think. And they just announced their next season, so please check that out. It was surprising to me. I forgot that musical came out in 1971. And as I heard all the music, I'm like, my dad used to sing all those songs. So it was really fun to hear again and to see Next Stop's rendition of it, because they always just kind of give this modern, fun flair that really makes it enjoyable for even when it's a story that's been around for a long time. It felt really new to see. Right before I sat down, I got text from my friend who's at Art Space for the Design and Wine event, so that's a reminder that's usually on Tuesdays, so we don't get to go. But when it's occasionally been on Thursdays and I've gone, really fun event, so take advantage of that. I love that Mr. Davidson mentioned Friday Night Live. I just want to add, it's 7 weeks from Friday. Will be the first Friday Night Live. Very excited. The countdown begins. We're going to finally get some warm weather this weekend, so we're going to start to feel it. Also want to mention this weekend is Green Lizard's 5-year anniversary. So please check that out. They have a lot of fun events coming up this weekend. I will be in New York City this weekend, so I'm going to miss it. I mention that only because I'm going to spend lots of money on this Broadway show, and we'll see, Evan, how they compare. I don't know.
You're going to see Godspell?
No, I'm going to see Waitress.
Oh, okay.
But I am going to see a musical on Broadway, so the timing of it was fun. So I'm like, well, we'll see. I don't know. Given what we have in town, I think we're very lucky. And then finally, I've mentioned this, 2 more things. I mentioned this last time. Herndon High School Band, many of you know that they are going to Normandy, France next year to commemorate the 75th anniversary of D-Day. D-Day happens to be my birthday, so I'm working with them to help basically create a shadow group that's going to go with the band. We will have no chaperone responsibilities, but we will just get to go and kind of be a part of it, be with veterans' families. So many of the men who served that day, the folks at Herndon High School, the band parents have reached out to many of those families. So they will be traveling with us. It's going to be a super special event and occasion to be part of. And so I'll continue to talk about it, and I'll have more information, or certainly just reach out to me directly. It's going to be June 3rd to June 10th next year is when the trip will be. And we already have it. We're getting it coordinated where we'll have the, transfers and hotels and some of that stuff all organized with this shadow group that I'm going to help to coordinate. So more on that. And then lastly, most of the council and several members of the public were just at our grand opening ribbon cutting of Egg Carne. So if you have not been there, so Herndon Golf Course, after many, many years with JJ's Deli as our restaurant establishment at the golf course, we now have Egg Carne. Absolutely fabulous food, and you don't have to be a golfer to go, so just pop over to Egg Carne, and probably you're going to mention that a little bit more, but highly, highly recommend it. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. When you go last, everybody's already said everything, but I have a little bit more I wanted to add. Egg Carne is a great, if you haven't been over there since the refresh, it's really fresh and exciting, and most of their produce and meats and breads that they are serving there are locally sourced. And the same owners, Alvin, who also owns Duck Donuts, is the owner of Egg Carne. So it's very exciting, and we were thrilled that he was willing to open another establishment here in the town. So make sure you check it out. Right now they're closing earlier, but as the time goes on and the sun sets later and later, they'll be open later and later into the evening. Arts Advocacy Day, I was going to say some things too, but then I should have never let Signe go first because I don't think I could ever say it as well as you did, Signe. I didn't realize when we passed our arts district in the downtown several years ago that we were the first arts district in Fairfax County. So we're really thrilled about that. It's an exciting time to be in Herndon. The partnership that we're working on with Comstock for the downtown redevelopment, Comstock is adamant, as are we, that the arts is the center and focal point and the reason people are going to want to come to our downtown. People always caution you about build it and they will come, but I think that we already have people coming into our downtown for arts-related activities, music, all those sorts of things, and we haven't even really built it yet. So we are super excited about that. We know it's going to be the centerpiece of our downtown and an economic driver, but as Signe, or Ms. Friedrich said so eloquently, it's also the center of building community, and I'm just not going to try to say it because you already said it so much better than I could. If you're not familiar with AmericansForTheArts.org, there's a wealth of information there about what the arts do for communities, economically, socially, culturally, all those things. So I have a feeling I'm preaching to the choir here, but if you don't know about that, check it out. It's AmericansForTheArts.org. I wanted to say, I think that Ms. Friedrichs might have mentioned this a few weeks ago, but I, as a former reading teacher, am super excited about the grant that Arts Herndon received from, I believe, from NEA, is that correct? For about $15,000 for a children's literature book festival, which will be happening, I believe, in October, definitely in the fall. They're working out the details on that. Right now, there is Autism, Art, and Acceptance is the name of the exhibit that's going on right now, and that's in conjunction with the Growing Kids Therapy Center. And also on April 11th at ArtSpace, Green Lizard is helping to host a blood drive that will also be in conjunction with that exhibit. And you can find out more at artspaceherndon.org. Next Stop Theater, Jen already talked about Godspell. I'm still telling everybody about 45 Plays for 45 Presidents. It was just such a riot. If you didn't see it, you really did miss out. If you get the chance to see it someplace else, make sure you do. And Monroe Street Studio is a little bit different model than the two groups that I already mentioned, but they are offering classes for spring break, summer camps, just like Next Stop Theater has a couple, or actually not a couple, like 6 or 7 different a bunch of theater camps over the summer that I'm hoping my daughter can take part in. So if you're not familiar with the arts in downtown, please make sure you get familiar, and I'm happy to be seated with a council that is an arts advocacy council. So thank you very much. That brings us to comments from the audience. I did call on the Vice Mayor, right? Yes, I did. I forget you sometimes. Sorry. The next portion of the agenda is for anyone to come forward and speak on any item that's not a public hearing item. You have up to 3 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record. And when the red light comes on, please wrap up. And it looks like we probably have quite a few people here this evening, so I'm going to try to stick close to the time. If you are here for one of the public hearing items, now is not the time to come forward. Is there anyone that would like to come forward and speak on any item that's not a public hearing item? Yes, sir. Mr. Downer.
My name is Richard Downer. I've been around Herndon a long time, and we live at 815 Branch Drive, Unit 308, and it's moved after selling our house to the Vice Mayor. Anyway, fortunately. Ms. Frederick has done a wonderful job of stating what the arts have already done for Herndon. And you realize that we have 2 organizations, Art Space, which I was very fortunate to be involved in the original organization of that, construction of that, and Next Stop Theater Company, which is where I met my wife when it was Elm Street Players. So I thank you for that after 25 years, 27 years.
You're welcome.
But we've got 2 organizations that have track records and know how to run their respective operations. And that's invaluable. And they also know how not to run their respective operations. And I just think that we have an opportunity, if we can get everybody talking together, including Comstock, and get someone involved, an architect that knows how to design a theater space and an art space, and fit it in that 18,000 square feet, which we've committed to, gross square feet. So I think we've got all the makings for a successful arts center if we just, in some cases, put our egos a little bit aside, but try to figure out a way and talk to each other and figure out how to do it. And we can do it. This organization and what you all have encouraged us to do is paying off, and we just can't miss this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. O'Reilly.
Madam Mayor, members of council, my name is Michael O'Reilly. My office address is 761 Monroe Street here in Herndon, and I'm here today because of Arts Advocacy Day. I thank all of you for your comments and your support. Signe, thank you so much for the comments that you made. We certainly wholeheartedly adopt them. Jason and Anna wanted to be here tonight, but one of them is at International Night at Hutchison. I think that Supervisor Faust is there, and Delegate Boysko also went over there for a program that we run at the elementary school. And then, as the Vice Mayor mentioned, we've got Design and Wine at Art Space. And I guess the one that drew the wrong straw is at Hutchison, and the other one's at the Design and Wine. I just wanted to take a minute to kind of make sure everybody's aware that we had a time period of about the last 8 months or so where there was a significant lack of communication, and not because anyone didn't want to communicate, but because we headed down this RFP process that I think I was quoted as saying it was a faulty process or something, but it wasn't fruitful. Ultimately, it may have helped us in some of the discussions that we're going to have as we go forward. But the result of it during the time it was in existence was that we couldn't talk to you. You all couldn't talk to each other, I don't think. You know, we couldn't really talk to anybody on town staff. So we were 8 months and we were getting concerned about the process and where we were and what was happening. And as I think I've reminded most of you, we live in a small town. And sometimes in a small town, people start talking and things go round and round, and you know, some things that perhaps aren't exactly true or may have a kernel of truth in them get expanded a little bit. And I think we've gone a long way towards trying to resolve those kinds of issues, at least on our side, and I think on your side. And to hear each and every one of you come out in support of Arts Advocacy Day, in support of the Arts Center, and in support of Arts Herndon and Next Stop, the way you have tonight, virtually unanimous. This is a great council for the arts, and I know that when we read about businesses that are coming into our community, one of the things that they frequently say is, you all have the vision, and I've got to say other councils and mayors had it as well, but you all have the vision, but you're getting it done. To put in an 18,000 square foot arts center in the downtown. And we wholly support that. We wholly support you for supporting that, and we'll do everything we can to continue to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Who else would like to come forward? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Evan Hoffman. I'm the producing artistic director of Next Stop Theater. I just wanted to come this evening to also advocate for the arts. I'm a fan of the arts. And I just wanted to say, number one, that there has been a tremendous number of conversations, particularly in the last week, that have been happening. And so many questions and issues that have been raised over the last month through the RFP process, and some of them are scary, and they've drawn panic from many of us, but I genuinely believe that it is all a part of a process that is bringing us closer to the path we need to be on. I'm grateful, while it was stressful, the RFP process and all of the conversations we've had have been tough. I'm grateful because it's illuminated so many things that we either didn't know or might have been sort of trying to ignore. And now more than ever, I am confident that we are going to find that path forward because we know better what we all know and what we all need to do it. And so I look forward to working with all of you to find that path, and especially from all the conversations I've had with members of the community over the last week in particular. I'm so energized by how passionate so many people are about finding that path, and it just makes me so happy and so excited about finding that. I also have to complain that I did not know how many of you have theatrical backgrounds, and so I'd like to request that all of you submit your headshots and resumes to Next Stop Theater within the next week. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Who else would like to come forward? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Laura Redioff, and I am the owner of the Music Loft in Herndon. Address is 1141 Eldon Street. Good evening, Madam Mayor and Town Council members. As a 30-year educator, parent of 4 children, and business leader in the community, I'm excited that the town is committed to building an arts center. I'm aware that in planning a revitalization of any town, many discussions do come to pass. I'm just here to show my support in favor of an arts center without a complimentary for-profit business sharing space with an arts center. Because an arts center, as Ms. Friedrich so eloquently stated, is really the heart and soul of the town. The arts center's mission and its function is not only to bring great art, programming, and events to the town, but it's also meant to bring people together. We are blessed to have an incredibly diverse population in our town, and by continuing to have events that cater to families, singles, children, and our seniors, we are creating a nurturing, caring place for all people to come together as family. If you consider a for-profit business sharing and shrinking the space of the proposed arts center, it does compromise the integrity, vision, and full scope of what we hope to accomplish. Just as a community center is an amenity to the town, so is an arts center. It's for the people. It's an investment in our children and our children's children. There is no better money spent than an investment in people. As a longtime educator and volunteer for many of the current educational programming that Arts Center has put in place in our schools, I've witnessed the power of the arts to transform children's lives. I have seen it bring young and old together. I've witnessed discord being replaced by harmony. Arts Herndon programs are growing so fast that we currently have to turn people away because of current space constraints in the building. The Arts Center will be able to accommodate the large influx of patrons that we have seen over the past 2 years, and it can continue to grow and thrive if you will allow us the full Arts Center without sharing a space. I feel that we don't need another franchise business on every corner. Herndon was built on local businesses, entrepreneurs, and visionaries, and we strive to keep the integrity of our town alive and not become like everybody else. I can't imagine what would our town be like if we didn't have businesses that have an interest and a commitment to the community, such as Jimmy's, the Green Lizard, McGrath Realty, The Breeze, Sully's, the O'Reilly Law Firm, Maud's, Great Harvest Bread Company, the Music Loft, and more. Isn't that what makes our downtown unique and special? I hope there will be more open and honest dialogue about the Arts Center with board members of Arts Herndon and the Herndon Town Council. Let's come together. And together we can do great things. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I agree. Is there anyone else who would like to come forward and speak on any item that's not a public hearing item? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mayor Merkel and Town Council. I'm Paul Olson. I'm a local resident as well as one of the town's newest business owners at Weird Brothers Coffee, 321 Sunset Park Drive. But I'm here mainly as a concerned parent, concerned about the arts and the direction of the arts and the things that we can do as a community to help promote the arts. I'm a full supporter of the Arts Center, especially as it was originally planned as a meeting place, as a focal point for arts in the community. Now, bear with me, I've been up since 4 o'clock this morning. I'd like to say that, I'll be honest, I have not been privy to a lot of the RFP planning and what's going on with the Arts Center plans downtown. But from what I have seen, what has been public, I almost believe that we have not been ambitious enough. I really see the Arts Center as being that important because we have so many talented children and so many talented kids here in this community, so many players, so many musicians, and there are so many burgeoning groups that could be able to take part and use a performing arts center as well as art galleries and studios that, like I said, I think that we may want to think a little bit bigger as far as our performing arts center that is large enough to handle full orchestras, philharmonic orchestras, dance groups, so on and so forth. You know, I truly believe that this type of community focal point is really what the town needs and what will continue to bring people into the town from outside of the town. People don't want to come to the town to see just another town center. You know, they don't want to see another shopping center. You know, people want to come to the town to see these things. And as it's been discussed, it's not only for the economic reasons that everybody will benefit from in the town, but as a community. You know, if we can touch on some of the social issues that our country as a whole has been dealing with, I believe that the arts is one of the biggest things that can help alleviate some of these situations and bring people out of their isolation and bring people together. And like I said, as a concerned parent, as a son of a musician, as a father of musicians and performing artists, and as a former musician myself from high school, but joined the Army and ended up having to stop doing that for a while. But I believe that that is our future. The arts, as well as sports and other extracurricular activities, are the things that are going to help us move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who would like to come forward? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Nicole Wickenheiser, 1109 Berwick Drive. I'm just a resident here in Herndon, and I came out and I supported this whole project of the redevelopment based upon this grand idea of an 18,000 square foot, right, art center. And I feel like I missed the beginning part of it, so I don't know what you guys all talked about beforehand, and I'm sure that everybody thinks that's a great idea, but I would feel deceived if that's not what we end up with at the end of the day. And I would feel like we came to have an art space that is a community space, and it's there for the town to really develop in a cultural way instead of a business way, as this community space was pitched to me. That's how I interpreted it. So I don't know what I missed, but I just want to say that I would really hope that that original point is that original plan is what we go with. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Beth Meyer, and I live at 720 Lynn Street.
You pull your mic down so HCTV can hear you.
Big mouth. I live at 720
I wasn't going to say anything.
Lynn Street and have a business at 718 Lynn Street. In full disclosure, I'm also a member of the board for Arts Herndon. And what I really am here to talk about is just Herndon as a community. And I'll try not to get too emotional because it's been one of those weeks with the 5-year anniversary. But so about 5.5 years ago, we stood on the upper balcony at the Nachman building on a windy October morning and on a Saturday and watched this little town that was really different from anything we'd seen in Alaska come together to honor a football team that had hardly won a single game that season and a really kick-butt band from the high school. But we noticed that almost every family in the whole darn town was there, and they had their blankets and their chairs and their red and black on, and we just thought, yeah, this is it. This is where we're going to spend our entire retirement money and build our bike shop, because this is where we want to live for the next, few years. And not only because it was on the bike trail and it was going to be a great place to build a successful bike shop, but because it was a town that we wanted to invest our money back into and be a part of. Our kids were gone. We needed a place to focus our energy, and Herndon was it, because it wasn't about money. It was this little tiny town next to a big city that we could have some fun in. And we are so thankful that you were so committed to the arts and maintaining what was started by those two great art groups. And we're looking forward to helping do what we can. And also, don't forget, we are also doing a bike-a-thon to help the Herndon band get to Normandy. So let's not forget about that, because we want to see those kids go and play. So thank you, and just thank you for everything you do for the town. And we need to keep it family-focused and the way it's going. So thank you for the last 5 years, and we've signed on for 5 more. So
yes. All right. Thank you. Who else would like to come forward and speak? Anyone? No? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council. Cesar Del Aguila, 126 Fortnightly Boulevard. Full disclosure, I am on the Board of Arts Herndon. And thank you for everyone to come tonight. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. But I'd like to double click on what that support means to different people. I've been hearing a lot of people kind of talking past each other. And I think it's incumbent upon leaders to really find out what people are thinking, but more importantly, communicate what you're thinking. So let me communicate what I'm thinking. 18,000 square feet, that sounds really cool. But is it really 18,000 square feet dedicated to the arts? And I will tell you, I'm hearing a lot of different things. So I think it would behoove everyone to get in a room where the sunshine laws allow, and we just have a conversation on what that means. That way we can align expectations with what will actually be delivered. There's a lot of concern that the path we're on may not be the outcomes we want. And the last thing we want to do is wake up after everything's done and say, wow, why did we do it that way? So I'd encourage everyone to, I think the wise one said, put the egos aside, and let's just figure out what it is we want to accomplish and get there. We get to do this one time. There's no doing it over once it's done. And I will tell you, having been someone that benefited from nonprofits, from the amenities, the generosity of communities, I'm here because someone invested in me, my family. And you never really measure that like a business, right? There's not going to be a quarterly or yearly or decade report on what we invested and what was the outcome. Because we're kind of a big family here, and we really don't track that well. That's why we're not a business. That's why we're a nonprofit or not for profit. So I want to thank you for everything you've done so far. I encourage you to consider all options. And if necessary, I'll say it, consider how we raise revenues if necessary. That's what an amenity is. That's what commitment is. So thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to come forward? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Town Council members. I'm Barbara Glakis, 935 Barton Oaks Place. So I could not agree more with the speakers that have come up tonight. I also support the new Arts Center in downtown Herndon, and I'm confident you are too. I understand that more work may need to be done to bring the project to fruition, aiming for a facility that we can be confident will be vibrant and active day and night and can be sustainable for the long term. And I am glad that the RFP process is over now so that increased conversation can happen between all parties without any legal constraints. So one reason that ArtSpace and Next Stop and all the other arts groups in town have been extremely successful over the years is because many of them are predominantly operated of the people, by the people, and for the people of Herndon, and because they have varied programming, which the town residents enjoy, and because the town has been a willing partner and has opted to support them. I want to thank you for supporting all the amenities in town and good services that we have, from the Herndon Community Center to the golf course to all the parks we have, to all the festivals and events in town, to the town government has been a great supporter. You've provided grants, in-kind services, and sometimes some reduced rates, rentals for the nonprofit organizations. And you have done this while being good stewards of the town's budget. This kind of support has helped these groups be successful. These are investments in town. They make Herndon a special place to live. They contribute to the economic development of the town, and they contribute to a higher quality of life for the townspeople. Thank you for your continued support over the years.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to come forward? Is there anyone else who would like to come forward and address the council this evening? Okay. Thank you very much. I think we hear you. That does bring us to, we have several public hearings. The first one is Resolution 18G09 to consider special exception application number 1708 at 1020 Eldon Street, Suite 206, to permit a beauty salon within an office condominium. I'll open the public hearing and call on Bryce Perry for the staff report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of Town Council. This special exception, case number 17-08, would permit a beauty salon as a personal service use within the commercial office zoning district. The subject property is located at 1020 Eldon Street, Unit 206, Suite 206. That's within the crossroads of Dulles Office Condominium. If you're looking at this aerial here, it's just north of the Mellow Mushroom site and just southwest of the Sterling Road Eldon Street intersection. 1020 Eldon Street is the building that faces Eldon Street. Property is zoned, as I mentioned, commercial office. Just to the south, the zoning designation is commercial service, and essentially the rest of the properties surrounding this subject property are zoned R10 residential. That's for single-family detached residential. The land use designation is business corridor for this property, as are those properties to the south. The residential properties east and west and north are within the neighborhood conservation land use zone designation. So this map here and the various designations exemplify, rather demonstrate the importance of this site as a transition between.
Bryce, are you sure your mic is on? I'm getting some people who aren't sure they can hear you.
It was off.
Oh, thank you. You got to flail a little harder out there. I was following along the staff report. Sorry, Bryce. I didn't mean to break your stride.
No, that's all right. That's okay. Okay, down to the street view. This is looking north along Eldon Street. The entrance into the property is just off here on the left side, and the building, 1020 Eldon Street, is what you're looking directly at here. The proposed business would be located on the second floor. It would occupy 930 square feet of space. It would be open 7 days a week, would have 3 employees, and would have, according to the applicant, up to 10 customers per day. Its principal service provided is microblading, semi-permanent makeup services. The applicant also listed skincare and waxing on their application, and that was discussed a bit at the work session last week. Staff did speak with the applicant and was able to verify that those services will be provided as accessory to the microblading use service. And really, it's would just be available to existing customers. The business owner for the proposed business has an existing business that does offer those services. The waxing and other skincare services would not be provided to any new clientele and would not be advertised as part of this new business. And I'm certain the applicant who's here this evening will be able to elaborate that if need be. Staff is recommending approval of this special exception. Staff believes that it does comply with the applicable criteria for special exceptions found in the zoning ordinance and the applicable land use policies for the business corridor land use designation found in the comprehensive plan. And it's mainly because the use in the business as proposed doesn't hinder the site's ability in any way to function as that appropriate transition between commercial and residential. And staff believes that to be true for mainly based off the fact that there's low customer volumes on a daily basis. It is a by appointment only business. I did not mention that earlier. It is by appointment only. And again, according to the applicant, there would only be up to 10 customers per day. Staff is recommending also a condition that would prohibit illuminated signage, and of course that would mitigate or minimize the visual impacts of the proposed business. In addition to the condition for the signage, the illuminated signage, based on the work session discussion last week, staff has made amendments to 2 of the other conditions, and those were dispatched out on last week. One is the permitted use condition limits the proposed use to by appointment only. Again, that's the plan. According to the applicant, it just reinforces that. And the other amendment to the conditions is that the special exception would run with the business as opposed to run with the land. And that's covered in the termination condition. The Planning Commission recommended approval with conditions. However, they discussed, as the Town Council did at its work session, some broader issues that are outlined in the staff report regarding the conversion of small office spaces into personal service uses. Staff certainly recognizes the importance of managing that and planning for that, and of course understands there is a need here to further evaluate that and further prepare for that and plan for that. For this application, however, staff is confident that the conditions being proposed here do mitigate the impact of the proposed use, thus making it appropriate for this property as proposed and as conditioned. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, and thank you, Bryce. The 2 additions you mentioned, the by appointment only and the special exception running with the owner, or with the business, not the address, are reflected in the new resolution that's before us. I just want to make sure everybody has seen that on page 2. It's in red, so sometimes it's not. So we don't need to make amendments if we agree with those. So thank you. Are there questions for Bryce before we hear from the applicant? Any questions? No? Ms. Friedrichs.
I think we discussed this at the work session, but I just want to make sure that I understand. Do we have any way of making sure that they keep to these small numbers of appointments, or do we just, if we notice a large number of traffic problems, or I'm sorry, of parking problems, that's when we would check them out? Or, I mean, what is the mechanism by which we all keep on track?
The proposed conditions, as recommended by staff, do not specify a limit on number of customers daily. It does limit it to by appointment only. If staff comes to any sort of knowledge that it's no longer operating by appointment only and that there are more customers than as anticipated, an inspection would occur and we would follow up on that. But as written in the proposed condition, we are not, even though they are claiming that it will be up to 10 customers, we are not limiting them to 10 customers in the condition.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
Along those lines, I like the by appointment only that we talked about, that was added. And then the other thing, I just refresh my memory, I think there was only going to be as many as 3 people working. So likely Correct. There would only be as many as 3 customers at a time in terms of if we think about cars or impact to the plaza, correct?
That's correct too, and that's a limiting factor. There's limited space for one. There's only 3 employees, and the microblading appointments last 3 hours.
Right. Okay. Good. And then, as far as I remember, we didn't get commentary or feedback from any of the neighboring or adjacent properties, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Other questions for staff? No? Very good. Okay. Thank you very much. This is a public hearing, and I see that the applicant is here. Would you like to come forward and address the council, or do you have any comments to add? Are there any questions for the applicant since they are here? No? Okay, thank you very much. So this is a public hearing, so I'll call for comments from the audience. Just like before, please state your name and address for the record. You have up to 3 minutes. Is there anyone that would like to come forward and speak on this application? Okay, Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and move to council level for discussion and action. Mr. McKenna.
Madam Mayor, I move for Resolution 18-G-09.
Second.
And so is that to
Approve.
to approve as written?
Yes.
Is that clear enough,
Second,
Madam Town
yeah.
Attorney? Okay, so making certain. Okay, so we have a motion to approve made by Councilmember McKenna and seconded by Councilmember Davidson. Discussion on the motion. Mr. McKenna.
In the conversations we've had in the past couple weeks in regards to this, I think it's in the spirit of what they're trying to do. Also, in congruency with what the planning board had done and some other things, I think it's something we should move on. And I'd like to get everyone else's opinion, but I think just based on that and the process it went through, I think that this does qualify.
Thank you. Mr. Davidson.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to thank staff for their great presentation on this at the work session last time. Covered almost everything that we talked about. I also want to recognize the Planning Commission's recommendation to us and thank them for their work too.
Thank you. Ms. Friedrichs.
I was very impressed by Bryce's presentation, and I don't see any reason at all why we wouldn't agree to this one, so I support it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Olam.
I just want clarification. There were 3 actual things that we could have approved. Is it the first, second, or third? Because the third one says also for the conditions set forth to achieve compliance with the standards.
Would you like to clarify, Madam Town Attorney?
I don't know what
It was the third. I apologize.
Okay,
Yes.
so with the conditions stated.
Yes.
Thank you.
And would we have that second still, Councilman Davidson?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. Seeing none, I will call the question. This is a motion to approve the special exception 1708 in accordance with the conditions set forth below to achieve compliance with the standards found in section 78-155.3, which are listed in the ordinance. Made by Mr. McKenna, seconded by Mr. Davidson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And those opposed. That motion carries. Next is Resolution 18G10 to consider special exception application 1706, which is at 199 Eldon Street, to permit the construction of a vehicle service center, Virginia Tire and Auto. Comments have been received that have been entered into the record, and I'll open the public hearing and call on Ray O'Sell for the staff report.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. The subject property we have this evening is located at 199 Eldon Street. It's at the northeast corner of the intersection of Eldon Street and Carlisle Drive. It currently has a vacant bank building on the property. That property was developed back in the 1980s and has been several different banks since then. As proposed, the existing building and the parking areas on the site will be removed to prepare the property to be constructed for about a 7,900 square foot auto repair facility and associated parking area. The redevelopment of the property includes that building with 11 bays, associated offices, and then also customer service area, and along with that 52 parking lot. The site currently has 3 vehicular access points to it, 2 on Carlisle Drive, 1 on the access drive, but the applicant is reducing the 2 points on Carlisle Drive to just 1 access point, which we think is a benefit. The applicant proposes to provide landscaping on the property, which will be around the perimeter of the site. There will be parking lot landscaping as well as building foundation landscaping, which is all required by the ordinance. And the plan that they've provided so far meets those requirements. As I noted in the staff report, the zoning ordinance only requires 43 parking places for this use, but the applicant is proposing to provide 52 spaces, and that's based upon existing needs at their other facilities. So we've got the 9 additional spaces there. However, they still meet minimum open space requirements, and they can get all the landscaping that's required by the ordinance on the property. If the council approves the special exception, we still have site plan review to go through, which is an administrative process. and also Architectural Review Board review process for the architectural plans for the building. I thought I did, have a slide there for the elevations. Showed that to you last week, but those were just an idea of what the building would look like. It's basically a brick structure. It's a different kind of, I would say, looking facility than that maybe we're used to, or ones that were certainly built 20, 30 years ago. It's a much nicer looking facility. The zoning ordinance provides us criteria to review special exceptions. There's 13 criteria. I've listed those in the staff report. And the staff has reviewed the application against those 13 criteria and finds the application meets those requirements. In reviewing the special exception application, as I noted in the staff report, we focused on reviewing vehicular access to the property, pedestrian access, the landscaping, traffic impact, compliance with a comprehensive plan. In this type use, we focused also on where trash and recycling would be handled, the parking on the property. And for those reasons, we thought it was in compliance with the special exception criteria. The staff was recommending approval with the 11 conditions that are in your resolution. Now, there is one additional condition that was added to address the council comment last week, and that was due to the in regard to the item with queuing to keep the queuing of cars off of Carlisle Drive that is had to be on the property. So that one was added at the end. The Planning Commission reviewed the application as they're required to, and they also recommended approval with the conditions by a 5-0 vote. And since the work session last week, you received a letter from an adjacent property owner, which was distributed last week, and then today you received a letter from the applicant's representative addressing the concerns that were raised in that letter last week. And the applicant is here tonight and can further address those comments, but I'll stop there and try to answer any questions you have.
Okay, thank you. Questions for staff? Well, I have a question, but it could be for staff and possibly the applicant. But how might we address some of those concerns that were brought up by the adjacent property owners? And are they? I mean, I would be interested in staff's thoughts on that, as well as the applicant's willingness or interest in that.
Let me just grab that here real quick. They noted in their opinion there was an incompatibility with existing uses in the area. And I think the applicant said it pretty well in their letter that it's really not inconsistent with the uses, particularly in the Eldon Street corridor. You see a number of auto-related businesses in that corridor. They like to locate there because there's a lot of good visibility and easy vehicular access. Negative impact on surrounding properties. As I said, I think the building itself is a nice-looking building. It's not I'll call it a typical repair facility that you would see in an industrial building or an older structure. I think it's got some good design to it. The ARBs as reviewed it once informally about a month ago, and the board, I think, had very little comments in regard to it. There were a couple little issues to address when they come back to the board in the formal process, but it was very well received by the board. Impact on surrounding properties. Gentleman noted about additional traffic and that being a problem, but there was a traffic impact analysis that was performed by the applicant's traffic consultant, which was also reviewed by our transportation planner and also the town's traffic consultant. And bottom line is, through all that, the intersections in that area at the light and the stop signs will not operate at a less service than there is now. In fact, the overall traffic generated by this use versus an operating bank with drive-up windows, this proposed use will be less traffic within the bank. So we think those that intersection there with the light with Eldon and Carlisle, as well as the stop sign intersections, will operate better than if there was a bank operating there. Lastly, the letter you got also addressed adverse impacts on property values. As I've said for many years, I think the only way to really accurately do that is that you have to have somebody that's professionally trained to do that. That I don't think you can just say that it impacts property values because of the use. There has to be some professional evaluation done to address that.
Okay. Thank you. Other questions from the council for staff? Okay, thank you. This is a public hearing. I would like to invite the applicant or applicant's agent to come forward. And you can address the council, and we may have some questions for you as well. Thank you for being here.
We got a little tripod here. We're going to set up and talk. I'm happy to discuss everything. And I'll start. I'm Mark Viani with law firm Bean, Kinney & Corman, representing Virginia Tire on this matter. First of all, I want to thank Ray and the town staff. Did an amazing job. They've really evaluated a lot of this application in a very thorough manner. We're excited to be here.
Is your mic on?
It says it's
right?
on. It's
Okay, good.
got a red light on there.
Okay. I can't hear you.
All right. It's red there.
Okay.
Be red.
Okay.
All right. All right. I start off on red, then I turned it off. All right. But
I just can't hear you.
We're excited to be here, and I guess I wanted to talk a little bit about Ray's kind of given some of the procedural history here. We went ahead and we filed. We did meet with staff beforehand. We've received Planning Commission support, staff support. We have done the courtesy review with the ARB. The plan we have tonight, it was very minimal comments from the ARB, but we revised that to reflect the comments we had, and we can talk a little bit about that. But we are now before you, asking for your support. Do want to talk a little bit about, since Ray kind of stole a lot of my technical thunder about some of the answers there, I appreciate that. Talk a little bit about, some of the general comments we've asked and questions about. This is Virginia Tire. They are a local family-owned business. They own about 800 local employees based in Fairfax County. This is not a franchise, all right? This is going to be the 15th facility. Generally, I've represented them for years. They're an easy applicant to represent on these things. Those of you who have had experience with their facilities, they're very well thought of, both by the public officials in the jurisdictions we deal with, and more importantly, by the communities in which we're around there. Most recently, I could think of 2 applications we did in the last year or so, Springfield and in Mason District. In both cases, we had actually the communities supporting us and looking there. They have a history of having very well-maintained upscale facilities. And I think you see the reflection of that both in look at the awards they've won with Virginia Living, Northern Virginia Magazine, awards from Angie's List, and I encourage you to look at the comments if you look at those things. That's part of the ethos of the company, but also, frankly, it's part of what customers expect and what people, they're looking for something like that. And for that reason, there was a question about, and I'll get to this in sequence, about, how they're perceived and impact on property values and stuff like that. And I would actually point to, most recently, the Springfield matter. And we've got properties out in Prince William County, too, where you have the county economic development folks, and you have landowners that are looking to say, I'm trying to get something like that in my center. And you'll typically find these things in upscale retail commercial corridors. And we can talk a little bit about the operations as to why that's the case. But that's kind of the history, and that's what we're looking to bring here. Talk a little bit about, the letter. We did get a letter on late Friday afternoon, and in our letter, you'll see the pictures we have. Obviously taken before, it was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We just called one of the guys and go out there and take a look. Taken before, daylight savings time, so the shadow's a little bit longer at 4 o'clock than they otherwise would be. But that was the Bristow facility. The Bristow facility is pretty much, this will be a little bit more ornate than that facility because we're proposing some stone at the bottom. And one of the architectural comments was that we initially had the windows going a little bit below the stone level. They want us to bring that up, so we've gone ahead and made the revision. But that is the kind of facility you're looking to see here. And this is they aren't staged photos. They're literally a guy walked out there with a cell phone camera, just went click, 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 and took what's on there. That's actual operations. And, you'll see that this is a multi-decade, track record of experience there. So some of the other comments, we're worried about junk piled up. or debris or something like that. And, I understand where people get that view. People have that perception that maybe the way things were handled at a different time and stuff like that. That's not what customer expectations are now. That's not the way they've ever operated. And I think, our track record reflects that. In terms of Ray to handle the traffic, we are actually a net drop in traffic. Some of the other questions were, are there going to be trucks on site? Will there be tow trucks? We were asked about that. We've already addressed that. This is not a tow truck operation. This is light vehicle maintenance. This is tires and fluids and small repairs. This is, if you want, there's no body work. There's no vehicles. We have a condition in there about not having vehicles overnight. The only time that ever happens is if someone gets caught like late at work, or sometimes you get a snowstorm or something like that. But that's just not the nature of this business. In terms of last thing, in terms of compatibility in the area, as Ray kind of pointed out, if I just go from a strictly technical standpoint, what's in the plan and the way we're both planned and the way we're zoned and the property they're concerned about, the town has basically made those determinations as to that the zone is compatible with the properties next door. This is a special exception use. We're not looking for a rezoning. We're not looking for a comp plan amendment. We're looking to just take advantage of the existing zone and the special exception use. The purpose of the special exception process is to say, okay, this particular use is conditionally permitted there, provided you go through a fairly rigorous process and we add a bunch of robust conditions to make sure, because you could operate at variance with what we want, or you could make sure you do it. That's the purpose of this process. And so, we're hoping that we'll get your support the way we've gotten the recommendation of support from the Planning Commission, the way we've gotten the recommendation of support from the staff. And, we will still go back in front of the ARB after this, and we've designed to make those changes. If you would like to, we want to hold up the graphics. Well, I guess we've got them right there.
Yeah, we can see them.
Yeah.
I think we can see them.
Okay.
Can you guys see them?
And those are the elevations.
Oh, no, maybe.
I can't see them. They're behind.
That's why I asked. So you can lift them up if you don't mind.
But I know
Thank
I can't see them. I'll turn this way.
Yeah.
Those are the elevations. These are slightly revised from what we talked to the Planning Commission at the Architectural Review Board. In the Architectural Review Board, those windows on the side were slightly depressed below where we have the stone facade. On the bottom, that's actual stone. That's actual brick. All right. And so so now they asked for them to be bumped up there. We bumped them up there. There was a question about some of the green line, which is one of their branding things. So we've gone ahead and eliminated that off the back of the facility to accommodate that request. But we will. I think we've met the ARB's requirements, but that'll be the ARB to determine. We have, if you flip to the next one, at least you get a color copy of. Well, those are color photos of. Actually, that's from Friday. And that's exactly what you'll have out there. And there's the elevations with the landscaping and context. I would note, not only with the experience, but like in Springfield, one of the reasons we got West Springfield Community Association so happy was, people will actually end up using us as an example for, we want the new project to come in there, go ahead and look like the Virginia Tire site. Provide the same kind of sidewalks, provide the same sort of ornate landscaping, maintain the landscaping. And we go ahead and do that. That's the way the commitment of the community is, and that's the way we intend to operate here. So with that, I think I've probably used all my time. I'm happy to take any comments.
That was very helpful. Are there questions for the applicant? Vice Mayor?
Yeah, that was absolutely helpful. Thank you for that. I liked knowing that it's not a franchise. I was going to ask about that, the number of facilities and all that, so that was helpful. This is maybe even more for Ray. How long has it been a vacant bank? I don't even know.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure.
It's been a couple years.
I was just curious.
We're told about sometime as part of the United Cardinal merger, and that happened at the summer of 2014. So about 3 to 4 years. It may have lasted beyond that, but not much.
So you're wooing us, but you're competing with a vacant, boring spot. But I do love what you've put together. It certainly looks much better. And then my only other question then is about. I was curious about sort of market research, because obviously this is now your 15th location. So. What else were you considering? Why Herndon? Why did you pick that spot?
Because you're Herndon, frankly.
Oh, thank you.
That's a good answer.
This is to be honest, this is a substantial investment. Herndon's an attractive place to do business, and this is an attractive site within the town. we wouldn't be spending this kind of money if we didn't think we'd succeed, and frankly, we didn't think we could also, weave ourselves into the fabric of the community and be, a responsible member of the community as well. But if you look at the places where they go to places where we see this is kind of a next growth area, this is a kind of a next upscale area, so like Bristow, Springfield, the revitalization of Springfield, the new site in Mason District that's going right next to the redevelopment of Loisdale Shopping Center. All those areas, that's our focus, and this opportunity presented itself, so we jumped on it.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Thank you, sir. Are there other questions? Ms. Olam.
Just out of curiosity, where's the facility in Springfield? Is that by
Backlick Road. Actually, there's two facilities. There's the original one. They have Virginia Tire Centers, and they also have gas stations they operate as well. And there is, if you're going on Backlick Road in Springfield, you go past where Backlick splits off with Amherst, go south as if you're heading to Geospatial. You'll see over on the right, there's the Virginia Tire Center, and there's actually immediately north of it is a Shell station that we acquired, and we went through that last year. And we got West Springfield folks were very happy with that because we were able to take the same, landscape and frontage that they were looking for right there, and take that and frankly extend it over. There's a road in the middle of it, but extend that over there and kind of continue as we're trying to do a lot of stuff in Springfield to bring it up to what the master plan and the comprehensive plan guidance is, and what the community is trying to do is we're trying to make the place more upscale.
I lived in that area when I first moved to Virginia, and I was so impressed with a couple of the auto stations there. The landscaping and the decorations they put out during the holidays was very impressive. The other thing is, this was asked at the work session, do you do a lot of business specifically just for the inspections for safety and the emissions?
That's not a dominant part of this business.
Yeah, because
people, you can get that done, but that's not. People don't just come there for that. Typically, it's the typical thing is you're going in and you're dropping your car off for the day. You'll typically have you or your spouse or someone else will follow you in another car. You drop your car off, which is the reason the question we had extra parking spaces and stuff like that. And the question about stacking, we're totally fine with that condition. That just doesn't happen. Typically people are dropping their vehicle off, and much the same way like I do with my office. If I see, I'm a month away, when am I really going to have a chance to come in there? I'm like, yes, fine, do this. I'll pay the $35, and we'll get that done while I'm getting my tires done, while I'm getting my fluids. That's typically what it does. The dominant thing is light vehicle maintenance and tires. People really don't make a lot of money off inspections. Actually, I don't think you make
that's
much.
What I thought. The place that I frequent does the same thing. But if I'm not going in for any type of maintenance, I go sit in line to elsewhere. I don't go to their spot to do that because that's not what they do. The other thing is when the cars are there, are the bays down? Are they pretty?
Yes, the bays are down. Actually, I said if you take a look at the pictures we had, that was literally he walked right out. The bays are down, and we have an internal vacuum system that handles it that way. You don't have those little holes in the door with hoses coming out there. They operate with the bays down. Obviously, when they're moving vehicles in and out, the bays go up. But if you drive by any of the facilities, that's typically what you're going to find. We do that for noise, and we have usually use noise attenuated equipment anyway, so that's not really that big a deal. And no one's banging out a quarter panel or something like that to begin with. But you just do that, and frankly, they're air conditioned. Sometimes in the summer, it's just nice to be able to have that. So
I was going to say,
or in the winter,
probably a little warmer in the winter and a little cooler in the summer with the doors down as well.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, well, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here. This is a public hearing, so it is your opportunity to come forward. Comments from the audience on this item? Is there anyone that would like to come forward and speak on this special exception? Nope. Okay, thank you very much. So that does bring us, I will close the public hearing, move to council level for discussion and action. And again, there are three options in the resolution.
Madam Mayor?
Yes,
I
ma'am.
move approval of Resolution 18G-10, the third, or approve special exception application SC 1706 in accordance with the conditions set forth below to achieve compliance with the standards found in Section 78-155.3.
Second. Okay, we have a motion to approve, including the, I believe it is 11 conditions on page 2 and 3 of the resolution, made by Ms. Olam, seconded by the Vice Mayor. Discussion on the motion. Ms. Olam.
Yes, I think this looks like a very nice project. We have another business that expanded, Weigel Automotive. I'm sure you know them. They're probably your competitors because they probably have maybe not as many shops as you, but I can say that it is neat. I do walk by there sometimes when I'm out walking, and I don't hear a lot of noises. They keep their bays down. The landscaping, which I hope our town forester will be involved, he usually is, but as the landscaping has grown up around Weigel's, it really softens the look, but then the building is also very attractive. So I think once it gets in with the landscaping you've proposed, I think it looks like a very attractive center.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Vice Mayor.
Yeah, I would just add, we did get the letter last week from one of the adjacent neighbors, and that's always a concern because the folks that are sort of closer to it and see it every day. But I really appreciated the thorough response and how you addressed all of those topics, both in the letter and here, and certainly has set me at ease that this is, I think, a huge improvement to the site. I also appreciated the market research part, right? That there's a value and there's obviously a need for this, and that will be a benefit to our residents and nearby residents. So, with that, I appreciate the work on that.
Thank you. Other comments? Ms. Friedrichs?
I concur with the Vice Mayor and Councilmember Olam. It looks like a good business. It looks attractive. I don't think it'll damage the environment at all, the appearance. And I hope that the gentleman who wrote the letter feels reassured as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Davidson, followed by Mr. McKenna.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I think a lot of people are aware that I keep my airplane down at the Warrenton Air Park. And in getting there from Manassas down to Warrenton, I go down Route 28, and I happen to pass another location in this particular business, right by Piper Lane in Manassas, if you're familiar with it. I don't normally look at new buildings going up because there's a lot of building going up through there, and this particular location caught my attention just because of how attractive it was, how well it was kept. So I know from personal experience that this is a good-looking facility, and I certainly support this effort.
Thank you, sir. Mr. McKenna.
Yeah, I want to say I had some reservations at first, to be quite frank with you, but the commitment you had to the town, the drawings, the process you went through, the communication between staff and us was really well done. So there was no, there won't be any dark spots on the building. It looks fantastic, the renderings. And again, I'm familiar of your locations, but again, I come with a skeptical mind because that's what that's the way I am. And you did a great job. So just know that you have my support based upon the evidence you get before me. So thank you.
Thank you. I concur with my colleagues. I think this is going to be a nice addition. And that is one of the benefits of going through a special exception process, which I appreciate you doing because I know it's a lot on an applicant, but it does give the town and the neighbors reassurance that there are some standards put in place that you're aware of and that we know you'll comply with. So we really appreciate it and look forward to doing business with you as you go forward. So with that, I'll call the question on the motion, which was made by Ms. Olam, seconded by the Vice Mayor, to approve with the 11 exceptions. Or, I'm sorry, standards. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed. That motion carries. Good luck. Okay, and that brings us, I believe, to our final public hearing this evening, which is Ordinance 18008 to consider zoning ordinance text amendment number 1704 to amend and reenact Chapter 78 zoning to increase production of craft beer in the CC, CS, O, and LI, PDB, PDD, PDTD, and PDB zoning districts. Did you guys follow that? Say that again twice. With the granting of a special exception. Comments received by council on this item have been entered into the record. Before we get started, I want to remind everyone that the item before us is about breweries in general in the town of Herndon. It was a ZOTA that was brought forth by our existing brewery, who is wildly popular and very successful. But we'll probably tend to try to talk about Aslan, but we're really trying to look at all of these different zoning districts and what may or may not be appropriate. And so just reminding everyone here and that's watching at home that that's what we're talking about today. So with that, I will open the public hearing and call on Lisa Gillerin for the staff report, who will make sure we understand what all those letters I just said mean going forward.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
For the record, my name is Lisa Gillerin, Director of Community Development. The zoning ordinance text amendment that you have before you this evening is for the increase in production for small breweries within the town. They are currently allowed with a maximum number of barrels of beer per year of 5,000 in the Central Commercial District, the Commercial Services District, the Office and Light Industrial District with a special exception. So that district already requires a special exception just to get up to 5,000 barrels. Within the Planned Development Business PDB District, the Planned Development Downtown, and the Planned Development Traditional Downtown District. So the current maximum is 5,000, and that is by right, except in the ONLI where it's by special exception. Now, the applicant in their submission that they are proposing would allow an increase with special exception up to 15,000 barrels per year in all of the zoning districts that we just went over. And outside the Herndon Parkway in the PDB district, they are proposing 25,000 barrels per year with a special exception. Now, during the Planning Commission review of this particular item, the Planning Commission was quite concerned about having manufacturing uses in several of the zoning districts in which this is allowed. And the Planning Commission, in their recommendation to you, made some proposed changes to the proposed ordinance text amendment. And those changes were to, instead of 15,000 barrels per year by special exception in the various zoning districts, the Planning Commission recommended 6,000 maximum with a special exception, and they also required a tasting room and retail to be a minimum of 55% of the floor area of that use. In addition, they dropped the 25,000 barrels per year that the applicant had in their proposed ordinance down to 20 outside the Herndon Parkway, retained the requirement for the special exception that the applicant has in their language, and with no requirement for a tasting room or retail. Now, staff is coming to you with a third recommendation. And the reason we're doing that is because, like the Planning Commission, we have some concerns, but we're looking at it a little differently than they are. The staff is recommending 10,000 barrels per year by special exception in all the zoning districts that we discussed, with a tasting room and retail a minimum of 30% of the square footage. And then outside the Herndon Parkway, our recommendation is the same as the Planning Commission's, to permit 20,000 barrels per year by special exception with no requirement for a tasting room or for retail. And you may ask, well, why are we suggesting that it would be all right outside the Herndon Parkway? Well, that is because one of the main concerns, not the only concern, but one of the main concerns with the increase in the amount of barrels per year is the truck traffic. If it's outside the Herndon Parkway, then there's less likelihood that it's going to be coming down through the downtown and some of the other streets. It will be most likely the truck traffic would be on the Fairfax County Parkway and then on the Herndon Parkway, which are streets that are better designed for that type of traffic rather than some of the streets that we have in the core of the town. And so that's the reason why you see a difference there in the recommendation. Now, the staff also suggest that the Planning Commission's concerns were quite legitimate and that there should be some additional consideration to whether the ordinance as it is today or as being proposed in any of these alternatives that you have before you this evening is appropriate in all the zoning districts that are currently involved. And the staff believes, though, that that analysis and consideration is going to take some amount of time. Staff has several other priorities, as you know, that we're working on right now, and there needs to be some additional study and analysis before we would be comfortable coming back to you and the Planning Commission and saying, you know, we believe that this type of use should be within this zoning district, but not in that zoning district, and exactly how many barrels. So we believe that at some point, though, it would be worthwhile for the town to look at that. The staff is recommending the 10,000 barrels per year by special exception because we believe that if this use is going to be in zoning districts such as the downtown zoning districts or in the CS, which is our commercial service zoning district, and I'll show you a land use map, a zoning map in a moment that will show you the various districts, then we really are better off having it by special exception. And although we definitely respect the Planning Commission's recommendation, we believe that by increasing it to 10%, if someone comes along wishing to have a brewery in one of those zoning districts prior to any kind of reanalysis and change to the ordinance, that it is best that it be by special exception, and increasing it from 5,000 to 6,000 probably will not entice someone to come through the public hearing process with a special exception, whereas going up to 10,000 would. And so really the reason the staff raised that number was to try to encourage anyone who is looking at this use to come in through the special exception process. Now, there were quite a few questions asked at the work session regarding this particular application and the various recommendations. And the applicant is here this evening. I know that they can probably answer some of the technical questions better than staff can regarding the brewing process. I will add, though, that the special exception process, and I know we went through this at the work session, but for those who may not have been here at that time, the special exception process does allow the town to impose conditions, as you've seen in our previous applications this evening, so that issues such as when truck traffic arrives, the nature of the truck traffic, smells, various storage questions, and other operational issues can be handled during that process. I will say, though, there was some question about what are other jurisdictions doing, and many of the neighboring jurisdictions, you see that currently the breweries there are 5,000 or lower, but in the way of barrels per year. We did contact some, though, in Loudoun County and in Prince William County, and although some of them are producing below 5,000 right now, I will say that their capacity, particularly the newer ones, the ones that are opening up, say, within the past 12 months or so, they're ramping up, and their future capacity, at least one of them we spoke to, is up to 10,000. And so I think that's becoming more the trend, but then you also have to look at the zoning districts they're in. In Loudoun County, you have some that are in agricultural districts, and the Commonwealth of Virginia has made it more attractive to have breweries in agricultural districts, and some of the others are in industrial districts. A lot of times you see the brew pubs in the more retail-oriented districts, and we do have brew pubs as an allowed use within our zoning ordinance under a separate category. And so I'm hopeful that that answers some of your questions, and I am happy to answer any others you may have. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Are there questions for staff initially? Ms. Friedrichs.
I might have missed the answer to this question, but you said that in Fairfax County, people do have the right to go up to 10,000 barrels without special exception, or not?
No. Within Fairfax County, I believe the limit is 5,000 at this time. And depending on your zoning district, I think it varies. We actually called over to several in Loudoun County. Fairfax County changed theirs not that long ago. I want to say within the past year. And actually, in a lot of ways, it mirrors our current. I think we may have been a model there, but I'm not certain. It was with Loudoun that we were calling. There are several new breweries in Loudoun County, in part because of the agricultural districts that they have, which of course are very different than what we have in Herndon as developed area. But what their rules of whether or not they need a special exception, that I don't know. I do know that some of the newer breweries are building added capacity into their facilities. And I'd also like to know some of the people who have had issues with the odor in breweries. I'm wondering if did you get a chance to research, I don't know if you plan to research what other machines are available to mitigate the smell? The smell has been a topic of interest, and there are various ways to harness the odors. And we do have one built into the ordinance at this time. Staff went over to Sunset Business Park, where the only brewery in town is located, at a point when we had gotten a call from one of the neighbors saying, okay, we can smell it, come and smell it. And so a member of staff went over. And the staff member reported that the smell outside wasn't that noticeable. Really, but the smell inside the neighboring units was definitely very noticeable. So some of that has to do, we believe, with the construction of that particular building. And that's a little more difficult to get to. It's the sort of thing that a special exception might be able to get to. But then again, until someone actually starts the operation, it may be difficult to determine if you're sharing a wall. If you have a shared party wall, what the actual impact is going to be. What we would be looking at is venting to the exterior so that the neighboring properties outside wouldn't be picking it up through the exterior air.
Thank you. Other questions for staff at this point? No? I have a question. It may actually be better suited for the applicant. So I don't have a good sense of what 5,000 or 15,000 or 25,000 barrels looks like as far as the size of a facility or how many trucks that is. So, and maybe that's actually more for the applicant. But that's what I'm trying to make sure I know exactly when we vote for one of these options, what are we actually going to see?
Mm-hmm. In the staff report, there's a little bit of information, but it's not that informative because of the fact that we do list some of the breweries, how many barrels per year they produce, and how many square feet they have. Very difficult, though, to really envision what that means. And it doesn't get to how much truck traffic. The applicant has told staff that the truck traffic will not increase in direct relationship to the number of barrels, because currently some of the trucks arrive to the site without being full because the production is small. So they might be having more trucks, but it won't be double.
It makes
the number
sense.
or something. So, but I'm sure with the technical questions that the applicants will be able to address those.
Okay, I'll hold off on those. Any other questions for staff before we invite the applicant forward? Okay, thank you very much. This is a public hearing, so I'd like to invite forward the applicant. Are you both coming, or one of you? Come on down. So you can address the council, and then we may have some questions, and we'll go from there.
Good evening, Mayor Merkel. Good evening, Council. Mr. Ashton. I'm Kyle Leskowitz. I live at 1104 Arctic Quill Road in Herndon. I'm a resident of 6 years, and I'm one of the co-founders of Aslan Beer Company at 257 Sunset Park Drive.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Andrew Kelly, resident of Herndon for, I guess, 6 months now.
Welcome.
One of the co-founders of Aslan Beer Company as well, Andrew Kelly. Cheers.
Okay.
Honestly, I think Ms. Gillerin did a great job of representing the volume of information that's contained within this ordinance amendment, as well as the applicability to multiple agencies other than ourselves. And we honestly don't have much comment. There's some concern, but that applies to us personally. And we really do want to just press forward with this amendment for everybody in every other business that plans to operate as a brewery within Herndon. And without it making too much about ourselves, I think it'd be easier to just answer the questions you all have as concerns.
Okay.
Thanks for the time, though.
All right. Well, all right. Well, we'll go from there. Mr. McKenna.
Yeah, you in regards to the ordinance, you stated you wanted 15K by special exception in the multiple letter districts, and then in PDB you wanted 25,000 maximum. So that's 40,000 total. How did you come up with that number?
It's 40,000 total per license. So ultimately now we have 2 licenses in the town of Herndon.
Okay.
And it's based on our 5-year plan
Okay.
for our business. We would like to have a comfortable goal of 25 to 30,000 barrels of beer produced by our brewery before we have our exit strategy for retirement, at some point. And we don't know where that is or when that is, but that's the number that seems to be where a lot of the middle operating players of the industry operate.
And just so, the reason why I'm asking that is that is, I do know how much, that's a lot. Devil's Backbone, I believe in 2017, Virginia Business Magazine, 60,931 barrels. Then the next closest one is Star Hill and Crozet, which is basically Charlottesville for all given. That was 28,000. Then followed by Port City, which is 14,000. And then, it's drop off after that. It goes to, the 3 local ones, Legend in Richmond, which has a great brown ale, really like it. That's 7,951. Beltway is 5,000. So even Lost Rhino. So those are in the top 10. And I'm just concerned because my parents own a business, and I know sometimes when you're expanding, if you're looking at, just as an overall, if 40K is allowed in town, you would be, if you got to that production in 3 years, you would be the number 2 brewery in the country behind Anheuser-Busch, which is Devil's Backbone is owned by. So I'm just concerned about, I want growth, don't get me wrong, but 40,000 is very aggressive.
I do challenge the Devil's Backbone. They did 200,000 in 2017.
Okay, it was 60 according to Virginia Business Magazine.
2016 they did.
Okay.
60,000, but you also have to look at it from an economic perspective. We sell 100% in the town of Herndon, so meals tax, property tax, that's hundreds of thousands of dollars that the town of Herndon could capture, not including the residual income from tourism. As it relates to 40,000 barrels, it's really, it's not that much. If you look at, California, who has, I think, 2 or 1,000 breweries, and a couple hundred of those are over 50,000 barrels. So looking from a progressive mindset, Herndon could be the center of the Northern Virginia area, putting together a craft brewery movement.
No, I would like to add, this is extremely braggadocious, and I'm going to qualify that before I say it.
Go for it.
Mr. McKenna, I know that you're very familiar with the beer industry, and that we are making a type of beer that has a very high gravitas. There's people that want our product that come from across the nation for this thing. We're making roughly this year 6,000 barrels, and 100% of that will be sold in the town of Herndon, where you guys make that 2.5% meals tax on. We know, based on that demand and the rate we sell it, we could easily sell 15,000 barrels in the exact same format and not change a thing. Now, doubling that to 30,000 barrels would probably require us to do some distribution, but I don't think it would ever leave Northern Virginia. We use Half Acre, a bunch of good friends of ours in Chicago. They have the entire Chicago metro area, so broad brush, that is 6 million people. We've got about 3/4 of that in Northern Virginia DMV area, and they moved 27,000 barrels last year. Of one SKU. They make 14 SKUs, and sorry, a SKU is just a product.
Yeah.
I apologize.
Yep.
And that was of one product. Their total production value was somewhere in that 35 or 36,000 barrel range. So, I mean, they're probably an equivalent echelon as where we see ourselves within the industry. And I don't think what we're saying, like 30 and 40,000 barrels a year, is unobtainable. I think it's extremely successful, and it's absolutely a goal that we could reach.
And with the special exceptions, have it be a well-planned process can make it a seamless transition from where we are now to our future plans within the town. So,
sorry, I did have an additional thought.
Sure.
Just as he was speaking.
Yeah.
He's kind of like my muse, Anyway, I just want to think of it. I just think of this as any industry. We're an exception. What our brewery does and what we do is unique to us. It's not true for every brewery. You couldn't take them and apply them here and have them have the same kind of success or aspirations to make 40,000 barrels. But why limit them? Why tell them you can only do this? Are you guys telling Harvest Bread Company? Are you telling the Domino's and whomever other industry is in your town acting in a production capacity? Paul was here earlier, the Weird Brothers coffee guy. He's down the road from us. Would you ever tell Paul you can't roast or make this much coffee every year because he has the ability to sell it? We legitimately have the ability to sell 5,000 barrels or more in one facility right now, and the way it's written, we can't go above that. As far as a free economy goes, as far as like an economic value to you in this town, that just seems asinine. You know what I mean? And I apologize if that seems brass, or coarse. And it is. It's almost deafening to us to stand there and say, no, don't make money for us, or no, don't grow your business. It's confusing.
I yield my time to other
Sure.
people. Thanks.
Oh, I thought you had another
No,
question.
go ahead, Dee.
Okay, can I ask a really quick question?
Please.
Did you say how many barrels you're currently producing? I'm sorry if I missed that.
So with our barrel aged stuff downtown, currently we'll do 6,000 barrels. So between the two licenses.
Between the two right now. And so how many are going to be downtown right now?
We'll probably do about 1,500 downtown.
Okay. I just was trying to get a sense for like what we're seeing now and what that looks like,
And
just to help me
downtown's
understand.
a different project. We
Sure.
totally have a sidebar about what the beers are, but downtown Herndon currently is a long-term 2 to 3 year project.
It's
of
sours, right?
beers.
Yeah.
Yep, totally. Barrel-aged projects, foeder projects, things that mature over time. They wouldn't be made and made for purchase within weeks or months like we currently do.
Everything's manufactured at the Sunset Business Park.
And right now that is 5,000.
So even with the downtown, we produce the wort, transfer it downtown, and then inoculate, which means add the yeast to create the alcohol.
Have it sit.
Downtown,
Gotcha.
and then let it sit long term.
Correct.
Thank you. We're all going to come learn how to brew beer when we get this all sorted out.
If you can make tea, you can make beer.
That's right.
I am positive
But why
we will
do
not
that?
make it as well as Aslan.
No,
So
go
we will not be your competition.
Okay.
But I do appreciate
you
the
for that.
education. So I certainly appreciate what you said, and there's no one that's paying attention in Herndon that doesn't know that you guys are really doing something cool in the beer industry and in Herndon and in general. So it's awesome. And I appreciate what you said about being limited, but I think the big distinction is that the product you produce does have repercussions of how it affects the community, right? Particularly your immediate neighbors. So that's one of the things I think all of us up here have to be concerned about is if you are going to produce this much beer, there is, particularly for your immediate neighbors, a smell to it, not to mention some other potential factors, but certainly the smell, I think, is the big concern. So I have a few questions, but one of them would just be, I don't want to limit your ability to, grow Aslan. I think it's amazing. But I guess I would just say, what are you doing to be good neighbors given the facility now? Like, there are concerns that you're aware of now in terms of the smell at the Sunset Business Park.
Sure. I think I'll address first before I let Andrew. But Andres? Vice Mayor, I believe you mentioned earlier today that when you attended the Next Stop Theater, did you notice anything, a smell or discomfort?
I didn't.
It's subjective, so.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's subjective. I don't know that you make it at that hour that I was at on a Saturday night. Maybe you do. But I do think Ms. Gillerin pointed out that you don't really smell it from the outside, because I have walked outside your space, but it's more the neighboring properties, particularly Moonbounce next to you.
Next Stop Theater is adjacent to us in the hallway. I was curious if you attended Next Stop. We've had conversations with Evan where he's familiar with having a smell, and we had open conversation trying to mitigate these issues. But I would just say that that's a neighbor. Mm-hmm. If you notice an aroma or odor in there, I think it validates,
I did not.
I think it validates your concern, and I would love to address it. But I think we're in a position where, again, like Ms. Gillerin says, it's a construction of the building. We've added additional equipment. We've incurred additional costs that were not required either by the industry or by the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality, which would be the people who regulate the air. It's not required by the Virginia Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services or the Health Department. And at the time we started the brewery, not required by the Town Mechanical Office or Planning Department. So we followed all the procedures, and we're lending to the expertise of the others to tell us how to operate and structure our business appropriately so that we don't have these issues with our neighbors. And yes, we've gone through a process with our neighbors about trying to mitigate these circumstances, and to a point where you have to ask yourself, how many times do we have to have this conversation? How many more things do we have to do? How much more money does Aslan Beer Company have to spend till we hit a wall where there is no impasse, because we legitimately have a structural concern, or we have just an impasse in parties, and there's no way to please each other or find common ground. At what point do we continue to be culpable?
But I think the question was, what have you done to mitigate that? So it sounds like maybe you have.
We went to an in-stack system, meaning we direct vented to the ceiling, which is, again, not an industry standard. We added a condensation stack, which is approximately a $30,000 piece of equipment that takes any evaporate coming off of the boil kettle and adds cold water to condense it back down into a liquid state and puts it into the drain. And we've also added 3 large fans that are in the brewery. One is, a very large ceiling fan. We've withheld moving forward with any other processes because of that impasse.
I think the big thing is, one, it's subjective, and two, the smell within our unit is deeply rooted, and we have tried to work with our neighbors to figure out that smell issue, but in the end it is subjective, and we've proposed what we think, being a negative pressure fan, removing the smell to the exterior of the building, being a solution, but there's got to be a point where there's skin in the game from both parties, and we proposed that, and the response was no. So in the end, if our neighbors are complaining about smell and they want to work with us as well, I think that cost would be split after a certain dollar amount that we invest into the building. Being that it's subjective, and Ms. Baker didn't smell it when she came. So I don't know how aware you are of that proposal with our neighbors.
So a couple things on that. Yes, when I've been to Next Stop the few times and the recent time, I didn't. I guess I know it doesn't smell all the time, right? I think there's a point in the beer making process, from my limited expertise, where probably that is most prevalent. So I'm thinking my one point in time when I'm occasionally there, I don't know if that's as relevant. Your immediate neighbor I've known for a long time, so I've been personal friends with Charlie Kendall for a long time, so he has certainly brought concerns, and I know he has invested in his unit as well to mitigate that. believe me, this is a tough one, right? Because for the really, it's impacting a few groups, right, or a few of your neighbors. But there's this like huge upside to what you're really trying to do, though, right? So it's this difficult balance. At least I'll put myself in, of trying to determine how do we make a good decision for a really awesome business in town, but also keeping the immediate neighbors so happy, right?
I ask, though, that you guys stay out of the smell issue because it is deeply rooted. The first thing Charlie said to me before we rented the spot, is there going to be a smell?
Yeah.
I mean, that to me, that says a lot about searching for something.
Okay, well, can we keep the conversation about the broad, the broad decision that we're making and whether or not to change the zoning?
The ordinance?
Yes.
Okay, well, all right. I'm going to see if I should ask some of the rest of one. Okay, well, can I ask Aslan specific ones? Or no?
We'll
about
just,
their space?
We'll just agree to move on from the smell thing.
Oh, yeah, I have other questions unrelated to the smell.
Seriously.
Well, let's see.
Well, I think that if we were just talking about, one brewery, this would be a much simpler decision. But we're looking at, are we going to change this across the board in lots of different zoning districts? And so I really would like to try to keep the conversation there.
So I will say you've certainly highlighted a concern that that's been brought up to us, that we do allow this 5,000 barrels without any venting or any regulations, right? That's already on the books. So that is a concern that now has been highlighted through this. Because one of the benefits, of course, is the special exception is then there are some requirements. So that's I think a benefit to the town and the residents. Can you so how much can you brew in your current space at Sunset Business Park?
6,000. With our current system, it's 6,000.
With your current system, okay.
6,000 barrels.
Is how many you can brew. So clearly, you're at capacity, and so clearly I guess, because one of the things I'm trying to figure out, we're struggling with this decision, right? We talked a lot about it at the work session last week. So one of the things that it would be helpful for me is if I knew the timing, because I get it, it's the 5-year plan, and we're excited about your downtown business, but I think there's a desire to dig into this more. So help me with, and yes, we need to think about this broadly, but help me with, for you, as the applicant,
I understand where you're going.
the timeline. Yes.
In full transparency, we have no plans to increase any production value within the town of Herndon for several reasons, one of which seems to be this roadblock of, should we allow this? How do we facilitate this in any way? It's extremely difficult to plan a business based on the bureaucracy of, do we change the law or not change the law? Well, our business is growing and we need that value now. This should be your ability as a council and as a town to go, well, how do we capture the next market? How do we capture the next home brewer that's passionate about this business and not scare them away because we said 5,000 barrels? Don't think about us, really. This was a conversation we had with Mayor Merkel and Lisa 2 years ago, when we thought we were only ever going to make 2,000 barrels, and then the growth happened and we had this extreme burst, and this is almost non-applicable to us at the point now. We are at the stage where we have to grow into way larger facilities that none of the districts allow for space or use, and it doesn't necessarily apply to specifically Aslan. So, but to answer your question, we're within the next 6 months going to hit a facility and a capacity that allows us to do 30 to 60,000 barrels. So we've spent
outside the town of Herndon.
I think what Kai's saying
we're
is
in a position to do that.
We have been courted by other cities and towns, literally throwing money at us to bring our business there from a production standpoint, not including the downtown Herndon and the Sunset Business Park standpoint. And this is like our last ditch effort staying in Herndon from a production standpoint. And it's gotten to the point where we feel almost not wanted. I mean, that's frank. And kind of have both invested in the town millions of dollars, and this is our last ditch effort to say, hey, we want to make the town of Herndon our home, and we've been told no. That's how we view it.
Okay, I want to just take one more on that then. So if you're saying you're looking at other space that would allow for this 30 to 60,000 barrels that's outside the town, so if we do say yes to this tonight, then what's the plan for the facility?
Well, again, we have to go through the special exceptions, right? That's something we have to weigh as a business owner. We didn't want the special exceptions. That wasn't our original plan. But that's something we have to weigh. And you know, look, what's the cost benefit of us waiting, going through that process? What's the opportunity cost, et cetera?
I think this where it benefits the town is what I was alluding to is just there are plenty of people that want to be brewers. There are plenty of people that have the skill, the assets, and it's a low level of entry for the industry. Look at a city like Asheville, North Carolina, where they've got guys who are of a family tree of breweries where they've honed their skills and they branch out. You've got breweries like Aslan, where guys are primed and ready to do their own thing, stay here in Herndon because they've located to Herndon. Guys from the Ocelot, they're already branching off, which is another brewery in Loudoun County, but they live in the town of Herndon, they live around Herndon, that they see this as an opportunity to make Northern Virginia and this eastern Loudoun, western Fairfax area along 28 a beer mecca, a corridor of common grounds that breweries like ourselves and others have already created that initial threshold for people to be in the market associated with an area of quality product. And like I said, this is not just about Aslan. This should really be about the next guy behind us that has the ability to be here and not scared by a number because he knows he has the ambition to grow.
Ideally, you want 5 breweries, 6 breweries in the town.
Well, so you're a destination, right? Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay, so I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
Did you just say you did not want the special exception? Am I wrong that the applicant's proposal was?
That was not our original proposal.
That was not your original. There's been okay.
It was
I got it.
we worked on.
I've watched several of those meetings, so okay. I'm just making sure that I know what we're thinking about.
Yep.
Okay. Any? What other questions do we have for the applicant? No. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
So this is a public hearing, and so I will call for comments from the audience. If there's anyone that would like to come forward and speak, you have up to 3 minutes. State your name and address for the record, please. Is there anyone that would like to come forward? Yes, sir.
Good evening again. My name is Evan Hoffman. I'm the producing artistic director of Next Stop Theater, which is adjacent to Aslan Brewery. I am also the president of the Master Association for the Sunset Business Park. Several of our owners attended the Planning Commission's meetings and spoke, and we have expressed our concerns. And I think all of the owners have tried to express that we are in no way against or in any way not very happy for Aslan in the success that they have had. It is truly remarkable. I think all of our businesses wish we could grow as fast as Aslan has. But several of the business owners, particularly those most adjacent, have expressed before, and as I believe you have seen in various reports, about the various impacts. We don't want to stop them from growing. We were very comfortable with the proposals that were set forth by the Planning Commission, and based on my information now, I would think that most would be comfortable with the staff's recommendations, just based on the fact that the special exception is really the key there. We feel that we need to make sure that as neighboring businesses we are protected, and that whatever steps that are necessary are taken so that the success of Aslan, that we again would be happy to see, does not result in the failure or negative repercussions to our businesses. Many of the businesses have reported, both employees and customers, who have noticed the smells and or even had severe reactions to them. Yes, they're absolutely right in saying you can say it is subjective as to whether you like the smell or not, but that smell is not a part of our business, and it is not a smell we would like to have in our business. And so we wish Aslan all the best. We just feel it is important that those exceptions and whatever rules or plans are in place to protect us. I could be forgetting. I'm not familiar, or I don't recall the specific agreement that was referenced as far as the. We have talked several times with Aslan about potential remedies. I don't recall specifically what instance they're referring to in saying they would put in the fans, and that we said no. I do think that we have, as business owners, have all felt. While we understand their need to feel like there is an end to their always being beholden to us to change whatever we say we feel like they should change, I completely understand that. But we also do not feel that it is appropriate to say that half of the cost or responsibility for finding a remedy should be ours to bear. We do not feel that we are creating the problem. We do not feel we should be responsible for solving it, and particularly for paying for any portion of that resolution.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to come forward? Yes, sir, Mr. Downer.
Richard Downer, 815 Branch Drive, number 308. And I want a full disclosure, I am a member of the Next Stop Board of Directors. But I think the mayor has hit this right on the head. How do you decide when you move from an industrial venture, or, from a small venture, a neighborhood brewery, to a large venture? How do you decide? How many gallons is it? And I'm very familiar with Asheville, North Carolina, because we go down there quite often. And they have some major breweries down there, and also some very small breweries that are done very nicely. You don't smell the smell around there. I haven't, from that. One of the problems that I have seen is you've got a multi-tenant building that was not designed to keep odors in, to one space. Now, how you deal with that, regardless of where it is in Herndon, do we want to become the beer manufacturing center for Fairfax County? I don't know. That's what you're going to be charged with, really. But, how many thousand gallons or barrels does it take before you just are outclassed that type of business park, and you've got to go someplace else, at Loudoun County or wherever it is where you can, make the odors or this certain part of the brewing process. I think Jan hit it on the head there, but sometimes you can smell it, sometimes you can't. But the idea is, are you jeopardizing every other business in a multi-tenant park because one business happens to make an odor that's it's not necessarily pleasant, although I like it. I think it smells good. But at certain times, it's just like tobacco smells good when you just smell the can of tobacco. But anyway, that's my thought, and it's much bigger than just Aslan. And I think it's really your decision to decide whether you want to be a beer manufacturing town or you want to be a microbrewery type of town. And I know Jimmy's is actually looking at doing, their own little brewery in that little building up from there, next door to the Spring Street side of it. What is a normal, small, adjacent brewery, how much is that as opposed to a manufacturing facility?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to come forward and speak on this item? Yes, sir.
Thank you. My name is Wes Bousman. I'm one of the adjacent owners of units 253 and 255 Sunset Park Drive in Herndon, right next door to Aslan. And I just I'm here to support and echo what Evan has said and what Charlie had represented to you and some of the other neighbors have submitted in writing. the concerns that we have. We wish them all the best and success, but we hope that they will try, and you all will enable them to try and mitigate the odor problem and the impact on the immediate neighbors and the whole community. So that's all.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who would like to come forward and speak on this item? Is there anybody left? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Erin Wolf, and I'm a resident of the town of Herndon. I have no particular opinions on Aslan, but I have a lot of opinions about the downtown. The Herndon downtown is a very special place. To my mind, there is nothing like it anywhere in Northern Virginia. It's part of the reason why I've stayed in Herndon for so long, despite the huge expense that it is to live in this area. And so one of the things that makes the downtown such a fantastic place to be is its small-scale, fine-grained environment. When you go into a shop in the downtown and then you walk out the door, a couple yards down the street, there's another door to walk into, another shop to see. And that is something very special that you don't see in a lot of places. And I think you need to preserve that in the downtown. I don't think the downtown is an appropriate place for larger scale environments, especially larger scale manufacturing environments. And so while I have no concerns about the ordinance in other zoning districts, I would ask that the town council very seriously consider not increasing the amount of barrels allowed in the PDD and PDTD districts of Herndon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to come forward and speak on this special or this ZODA item? Anybody? Make sure nobody's hiding back there. Okay. Thank you very much. So that I will close the public hearing and move to council level for discussion and action. Mr. Davidson.
Madam Mayor, I move to continue consideration of Ordinance 18-0-08 until a date certain of March 27th, 2018.
I second.
Okay, so wait, do we have a motion to continue made by Councilmember Davidson?
I'll second that with discussion.
And seconded by Councilmember McKenna. Okay, thank you. Mr. Davidson, discussion on the motion.
Yes, Madam Mayor. The zoning ordinance amendment under consideration is far-reaching in that it includes at least 6 different zoning districts and offers at least 4 different options. The recommendations from the Planning Commission and from the staff differ. I have met with the town attorney on this topic, but not yet have been able to research the material she indicated would be pertinent to my questions. I have also asked for a meeting with the Director of Community Development, which has not been scheduled to date. I am not currently comfortable that I have information I need to adroitly make a decision on this matter tonight. For these reasons, I ask the Mayor and Council to continue consideration of this matter until March 27th. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. McKinnon.
I would like to follow Mr. Davidson, but more in a context in which I think we're having a dialogue now in regards to what needs to be done. My concerns, again, are the amounts. It doesn't say that they should be allowed. It's saying that I have concerns. But more importantly, I think in watching the planning board meeting and also with some discussions, I want to make sure we get this right. I think that there can be a nice mix here. I don't think we might not even have the answer in front of us right now. But I will say that my concerns as well, it stems to things like what happened with Ornery Brewery in Woodbridge. They were pretty popular, but they had some issues with their own landlord, and they're no longer there. And then B Court in 690, excuse me. So, I want to make this work, but I do think that, until next meeting, I think it would make the most sense so we do have everyone in a concise manner and make this work so it works for everybody. So I like to continue this, please. Thanks.
Thank you. Other discussion on the motion to continue? Ms. Owen?
Yeah, I think because of the impact that just what we have now on surrounding business owners, we certainly don't want to increase that discomfort with other businesses that are here. I don't think that's ever the goal, to have one company come in and displace the rest. So I think we do need more discussion on this so that we make sure we're having the right decision. This isn't any different than in certain developments. They don't allow hair places because the hair dye and the permanents are so smelly that it runs off other type businesses if they don't have the proper ventilation. So, this does happen with other industry as well, and I hope that we'll make the right decision.
Okay, Councilmember Fredericks, followed by the Vice Mayor.
I support that Councilmember Davidson's proposal, but I also would like to take the opportunity to tell the two gentlemen from Aslan that I know you don't feel that you're appreciated. It's hard to go through these processes without being somewhat critical, but that doesn't mean that we don't think you're a great asset to the town. We really, really do. But our job is to protect everybody, and we're trying. We're doing our best, and we don't want to run you off in the meantime, but we're trying very hard. So I appreciate you coming in. Thanks.
Thank you. Vice Mayor.
Yes. So I appreciate what the applicants said, and it was certainly helpful, particularly as we look at this, right, partly by your direction. It shouldn't just be about Aslan. It should also be about other brewers and sort of what the town wants and whether we, how we want to look at this. I love, there are, sort of those microbrewery towns that we've talked about, even as Percival and some of the other places in Asheville, and that's super cool. And so I can see the benefit of that. And I certainly see a home for Aslan, I hope, in downtown for a long, long time, given the investments you're making, both to live here and with what you're doing. I think the difference is what we're trying to figure out is where your production space is. And I know, obviously, as business owners, you're also trying to figure that out. And it sounds like you're also considering other options, because within Herndon, particularly within the downtown, but even in your current facility, there's not ideal brewing locations or space for what you're really trying to do, from what I've heard tonight. And by all means, in the next week or two, correct us on that or educate us on that further, because that's maybe just a gap for the way I'm hearing what you told us tonight. So you've certainly highlighted I think the delay, really, it's 2 more weeks. We never want to be seen as folks that aren't focused on our businesses, but as others have said, we need to focus on all the businesses and doing what's right for all the businesses, be it our current ones, be it neighboring ones, be it future businesses who want to invest in the town. We really are trying to be good stewards of making policy that's good for that longevity. And so with that, what I certainly concur that we need that 2 more weeks. Let's dig in more next week. By all means, continue. You can talk to each of us if you want to help us, educate us more, as we're going to dig into this next week at the work session. We already talked for a long time about it last week and this, so I look forward to continued discussion on the topic.
Thank you. Has everyone already spoken? I lost track. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to work through this at another work session. I mean, we're looking at, I think, 7 different zoning districts, and none of us want to hamper or temper your ability to grow. I don't think any of us, and maybe not even you, anticipated the wild growth. I mean, it's been really something to watch. Aaron's comments about the downtown really spoke to me, and Mr. Downer, who said manufacturing versus microbrewery. I don't think any of us, when we hear breweries, the rage right now are these microbrewery towns where people are coming and going to tasting rooms. And I just think that we really need to make sure that we're taking the time about a larger scale manufacturing situation and see where that could work. Because it's likely that it does work somewhere in our town, but maybe not everywhere. So we don't want to make a rash decision. We do appreciate that you're here. I remember the day you guys came into my office with all your swag, and I was super excited that there was finally a brewery coming to town. I still feel that way, and your downtown plans have certainly generated a lot of excitement on social media for sure. So I hope that you will, agree with us that taking a couple more weeks to make sure we get this right is the right thing to do. And I agree with the Vice Mayor. I think that everyone up here would welcome the opportunity to hear directly from you, and we could meet with you 2 at a time if that works for you, because if 3 of us are together, it's an advertised meeting, so we can't do that. But I would definitely like to be more educated on all the ins and outs of this. In addition to with the staff, I think that what we need to really have a clear understanding and ready to be discussing next week is each of these zoning districts, what they really mean, what's intended to be there, and what a special exception allowing a larger scale brewery coming into each of those districts, what does that mean? Because I think for me, the main reason that I'm grateful you made this continuing this motion is because I'm just not sure, and I don't want to make a decision when I'm not totally sure of what the impacts are and what we're dealing with. So with that, is there anyone else who would like to make a comment before we call the question? Okay, so there is a motion on the floor made by Councilmember Davidson to continue to a date certain of March 27th, and seconded by Mr. McKenna. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And those opposed? So that motion carries, and we will be reviewing this again at our work session and public hearing in the next weeks. What? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes items 9 and 10?
So moved.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And yes, ma'am.
I'll second.
Jen beat you out. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And we stand adjourned at 9:15 p.m.